but I can move them wherever you want.
I would put them under under 2.02.
Okay, so give me 2 seconds. And then you'll just have to refresh your screen when I'm finished.
Okay, we are live.
Okay. So welcome everybody to the first meeting of the Facilities Committee in 2021. We have an agenda today with a few items on it. I think the order, do I need to do anything else? Melanie, do I need to introduce any people in the meeting?
You don't, if you want to introduce people, you may introduce people. And if nothing, do we normally do public comment during this section, these sections?
Yeah, actually, and I don't see it on here. This is an old template. My apologies. So far, we have no public comment.
Okay, so there we go. If anybody is watching this and would like to public comment, we take those by email. You can email, and that email account is monitored throughout the meeting. You can email at publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. That is publiccomment@albanypubliclibrary.org. There you go. You may continue, Tom.
Right, thank you very much. So yeah, does it make sense to just go in the order that we have on the agenda? And I think this, I think we should just start talking about the timeline. What was that, Rebecca?
Just refresh. Everybody should refresh board docs.
All right, thank you. So I'm new as chair this year, and I wanted to talk about our timeline, and I think this will be a little bit of a recursive agenda because we're gonna talk about it again under new business when we update our committee description. But I thought for agenda item 2.01, it'd be helpful to refresh our committee on the kind of life cycle of this committee throughout the year. So could Scott and Adam maybe help us do that?
Sure, and it's changed a little bit due to the change in fiscal year, but in a way it's kind of worked out really well for us. The first thing we should think about is around the same time as the budget, but it doesn't have to be simultaneous because I know we're going to be busy with the budget. Sarah's on, the vice president of finance. There's a lot going on. So before July, so maybe in May or June, we should be setting up our capital projects for the next fiscal year. Simultaneously in that process, we could probably also do the DLD construction grant because I can't remember off the top of my head, but usually we start doing the application, I think July 1st. Yeah, it's okay, good. I'm not off on this. So I think it's usually due August 5th. So, I mean, I don't see the need for us to, in the past, we had 2 separate meetings, one set the capital budget, one set the DLD projects. They're usually the same projects. I think we should have a facilities committee meeting around capital projects and DLD projects in May or actually in April. So we would do it in April, bring it to the May board meeting, and then have it approved before the fiscal year starts.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. And then what do we do the rest of the year?
Well, that's the question, because this group usually met 3 times. This group would usually meet 3 times a year. Right now, we only need to meet once, maybe twice as a follow-up meeting. So what I would like to see is maybe in December-ish or January, do what we're doing today, which is an update on projects. I say December because usually most construction projects are going to be stopped by then due to weather, unless it's inside work. So any major outside work is going to be stopped around December. And that's a good middle point to kind of present where we are in terms of spending with the capital budget.
Okay, that sounds good to me. And yeah, that's kind of what we talked about last time, just doing check-ins.
You ready for the update?
So those are the two, and it's not unusual for a committee to only meet twice a year. So what that does is that opens us up to, we know we have to meet twice a year. There's a possibility we'll need to meet 3 times a year if there's capital budget questions, and we may need to meet again in an emergency. So this means the committee meets 4 times a year, which I think is a healthy, outside of P&G, I think that's kind of a healthy amount of committee meetings.
Mhm. Thanks.
3 is good. 4 is, I think, the standard. P&G probably meets 6 times.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. And we'll come back to this conversation a little bit when we talk about the committee description. But for now, I think that's really helpful. And yeah, Adam, if we're ready to move on to agenda item 2.02, an update on capital project that we've got going on right now.
And then my printer decides to come to life. That was funny. Okay, so right now, all the capital projects that are currently outstanding, old to new is how I'm gonna go about this. We have the Howe generator and solar panel PV roof. Or you want to go off the memorandum? It looks like someone changed the my screen there. Okay, so we're going off Pine Hills.
Do you want me to show something else?
It's okay. That's fine. Let's just go down this list then. So the office expansion is our 2021 DLD grant. Basically, that is an expansion of the office that doesn't exist for staff at Pine Hills, as well as some HVAC work. We're going to have to do duct work. There's some duct work repairs that are also going to fall into this project, as well as that staff office construction project. That's slated to start February 2nd right now. What's that, a couple of weeks? The Pine Hills generator, no, I'm sorry, I'm looking at 2 lists. The HVAC system, okay, the generator, emergency generator for Pine Hills, that goes back to, looks like 2020. And that is going to be undertaken after we get through this Howe generator PV roof, because we're going to be using the same group right now to finish that first job at Howe. So the generator should be up. Hopefully we get started on that this year. And then the Pine Hills office expansion and HVAC system, that's Greco Construction. They're going to be starting that February 2nd. Howe branch, I was starting with that. So, okay, the HVAC system at Howe, this is part of the larger system update for HVAC systems. There was 2 types of systems. We had TBS when I came on site, and now we're rolling it into all Metasys with Johnson Controls to make it consistent. How is done? We're currently in graphics install. What that means is they're basically putting in the GUI. Think of it like Windows. How you're going to navigate it, checking alarms, looking at your heat, your fan coils, is everything operating basically from a Windows PC. That is still ongoing. Adding and removing data points and things that I think are needed and things that are just too much information. Solar panel installation, that is the Howe branch. that is, I just signed the contract today. We finally worked through that piece with Castleman, and they need to sign their part, and hopefully we get this started ASAP. The only wait on the Howe solar panel and generator project is the panel, wait for the panels to come in. And the generator is another waiting for the generator to get in. But it's the furthest we've ever been since I've joined last year in this project, and they're ready to go. So I would like to get that done. The due date that we put in there is to be done by June 1 of 2021. So in a few months here. And that's the Howe project. The emergency generator is just part of the process. We already have gas lines ran, and get that all tied together and make it one happy family down there. Upgraded communication systems. Our radios are in, base stations have been put up. This just goes into each branch having their own radios, their own talk groups. So you will be able to communicate better. Sometimes cell phones are not the greatest. I thought that, the best thing for us to have is the radios. If we lose power or something goes down, we still have the ability to talk via two-way radios through Motorola. This is just sending out radios next. That's currently there. I'm covered in my office around boxes, so I'm labeling and getting these out. But there's a radio information sheets already out there, and it's going to be a learning process for everybody to get used to how to utilize the two-way radio. So that's practically done now. It's just a matter of deployment. Where are we at? Are we on HVAC? Okay. So the server has been updated at Washington, and that's what makes the entire HVAC project for the 3 branches to be current talk, and that is done. Delaware branch was another one of the branches that needed to be on the same Metasys system as well as Howe and Pine Hills. So they are done as well. Again, graphics testing. Pretty cut and dry there. Parking lot repaving and striping, that was finished August 20th. Delaware received a new parking lot, new paving. Looks beautiful. Is that the end of the list?
That is the end of the list.
Okay, I could have kept talking. Sorry, I was going to drag you guys under with me. There we go.
So one question I had is that I noticed the actual totals for the projects that we have those totals for. I think on this list that the totals were less than the estimates. What does that mean as far as the grant we got for it? Like, do we get to keep the rest of the money and reallocate it?
So let's look at Delaware branch, for example. So the total estimate was 85 and what we got billed was 73,398. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. So what happens on the project is they bill you a substantial portion of the maximum amount. And then once the job is complete and it's satisfactory, then we should see the final small percentage billed to us. Okay. So basically we're paying 3/4, they finish the work, and then we get the final remaining amount that we have to pay.
So if we come under budget for a DLD grant, what we'll often do is we'll file an amendment and add some work to the project, and they almost always give it the okay.
Okay.
So what we're thinking of doing with this, well, Delaware is a good example. We'll use Delaware again. We didn't get to the roof because we didn't have enough money. What happened with that project is we did everything we needed to do according to the project, but one component of the roof. And we were actually under, I mean, we would be over if we did the roof work. And Adam didn't feel like Adam's, idea is we don't need what we thought we needed, which is unusual to happen. But remember, this DLD project was created by one person, and then Adam inherited it.
Mhm.
So we would be $14,000 under or something because we didn't do the ice guard. But if we did the ice guard, then we would be 10,000 over. So then we put in an amendment and say, we're going to do this extra work in the parking lot. Can we use this to be built? Because it's New York State grant money, which means it's already sitting out there. And if it's not spent by the Department of Library Development, both Sarah and Tom, you know this, it disappears into the black hole of the New York State budget.
Mhm.
I was actually going to ask. I'm seeing 2019 DLD grants on here. What's the timeline to spend grant money in?
2 to 3 years,
Yeah,
Okay.
sorry. Go ahead.
and you can do extensions. So the How project, we've gotten an extension on already. The Delaware project, we didn't need to file for an extension, I don't believe, because they automatically gave extensions because of COVID. So
Yeah, it's up to 2023 is, I believe, the last communication I had, Sarah, was all these projects. It's actually a table from 2018 extended to 21, 2019, 23, 22, and they just bumped them all out a few years.
Okay.
The goal is to get them all off the table.
yeah, our goal now is to get everything done on time. We haven't had a great history of that. So that's the next thing we're going to fix.
And when you, just still thinking about the roles of this committee, when you ask DLZ for an amendment, does this committee review that before making that request?
Not typically, but that might actually be something we maybe build in. Not necessarily something that needs to be voted on,
Mhm.
but at least an informational item of, example with Pine Hills is we're going to have a little bit of extra money. So we're going to do some additional work to the HVAC system, which the HVAC, it's really not changing the project. It's changing the scope of the project. So the Pine Hills DLD grant has the office component and the HVAC component. We're going to ask, since the quote came in under on the office component, then we're going to do an amendment, addendum, but it's still a part of the, it's an additional, it's an additional thing on the scope of the work that we're already doing. But I think it would be good to have the committee know about this.
So I can tell you some more information here on what Scott's talking about as well. Is you tear open one box, you look to your right in the ceiling, and then you notice there's deficiencies or things that are affecting our temperature somewhere else that was never thought of. So once I got on site, Pine Hills would be the perfect example as well. I'm looking at the blueprints, and right now, currently in the existing office, we have a 6-inch duct line that runs in there providing air into an office. The 6-inch line is not that big. So that in the HVAC upgrade portion of this process, there's work to be done here. This wasn't labeled from whoever did the construction a decade ago. There's been some deficiencies I've found that now I'm trying to get all those caught up so it's one unified mechanical project and we're done and wipe our hands with it and move on to the next best thing. So it's kind of how these amendments go into it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that does make sense. And yeah, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if we want to formalize the process, but we could always say some, any amendment that goes to DLD that's worth a certain amount of dollar value should be reviewed by the committee, even if it doesn't need a vote.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, I think that lessens the chance, it's difficult with this committee since two of you are in state. Actually, you're all kind of in government a little bit. So I know.
I am no longer, I'm
Okay.
a full-time student now.
Okay. But you still have your connections to
Yeah,
that
I've got the knowledge.
Yeah. So it would be good for you to be able to explain it if DLD came to you. It would be good in case I decide to retire early and I'm out, I get the trailer and I'm out. I think it would be good to have the facilities committee updated more often on some of the changes we're making. And yeah, I agree. I mean, if it's a significant, I would say a percentage of the award instead of giving a dollar amount, because sometimes we do DLD projects, it's 40 grand is the whole project. Other times we, and it depends on what we know other libraries are asking for. Sometimes we've asked, and gotten $200,000. So I would say if it's a percentage change over, 10%, if the cost is going to be 10% or more of the overall budget, then we should bring it to the facilities committee.
Yeah, that sounds good. So I guess we can add that to our doc that we're going to do later in this meeting. Yeah, let's do that.
I actually just have, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Sarah.
Just a random HVAC question. I know it was mentioned at the beginning of the pandemic, but we do have a newer system. How do we fit in with all of the new requirements regarding HVAC and COVID?
Okay, so as far as a newer system, all the pieces and parts and mechanicals that make up everything is still the same. There has been new filtration put into the existing air handling units as they can mate to them. There is a greater project that I'm thinking about down the road that I think we should look at, which would be, it's going to be expensive. Some of our buildings obviously have some age to them, and there's going to be air handling unit complete overhaul, changing into new air handlers to get to a certain level of UVC light into the ductwork, so on and so forth with Johnson Controls. But right now, where we're at, we have MERV filters put into the compatible units. And we have air purifiers I'm implementing into spaces to clean our air for our librarians and our customers. How would be an example. That's where we're at right now, Sarah.
Thanks.
It's yeah, and it is also a slow process because the materials that make up the filters, it took us a while to get the filters, a few months, because all the air handling, filtration, and so on and so forth, the products that make those up are the same products that make up masks and PPE worldwide. So the filtration to get it, everybody like masks just, it's been a crazy year to get those things changed out. But yeah, we're moving that way. And, you know, I think we should continue talking about how each branch and how we continue to refine the air quality. I actually have a good document from Johnson Controls showing the UVC light and how it affects the inner ductwork. You guys want me to share that with you?
We also, I got taken away by an email for a second. We also, I don't know if Adam touched on this, we also have standalone units that we've had installed, both in public areas and staff areas. So we're trying our best to be on top of it.
Do you guys?
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, I remember it being mentioned in the beginning of this whole process.
Yep.
Our I know like the memo that Scott wrote had the HVAC upgrades, but there's nothing. Are we doing that at Arbor Hill as well and Bach?
The Arbor Hill, all of the, yes, short version, yes. The filtration for the branches has been installed. There is a couple still outstanding. Let's see. Pine Hills, Bach, and Arbor Hill have been installed with MERV 13s. Maine, we have them at Maine branch, Washington right now. And those are yet to be installed. And then we're still ordering what's remaining, trying to get them in. Again, supply issue.
So our plan is to have them in all locations.
Yep.
And it seems like we're 2 locations behind.
Mm-hmm. But we didn't need the HVAC upgrades that we did through the DLD grants.
Yeah.
At Bach or Arbor Hill.
No, Bach is probably going to be our next DLD ask. And that's the reason why the filters were done, I believe. I'm assuming the filters were done the way they were done because we already had HVAC projects going on with those HVAC systems. And also remember that some buildings, some buildings have one system and some buildings have another system. Any of the buildings that were redone, their HVAC system is different than any of the buildings we built from scratch. You'll notice Arbor Hill and Bach have very similar characteristics because that was one group of architects and that was one group and they were paired with a group of builders where Delaware, Howe, and Pine Hills were redone buildings. And that's a little different there. Different architects, I believe for all three. For all three, same architect, but different than the other libraries. Yeah, we staggered a little bit, but we didn't stagger enough so that we could have had those architects or firms working on all the buildings at the same time. We would probably have our buildings be a little bit more conformed to each other if we had done that, but we wanted to do all 5 branches at once, and we did it over a course of a couple of years.
Mhm. Okay, thanks. And so the memo is a list of all the projects that are, is it, so it's all the projects that are ongoing or about to begin?
And or finished. Yes.
But then like there are other projects on like the cost breakdown spreadsheet that aren't in this memo, right?
On the Excel document, yes.
So this is this year's capital budget projects. There are some 2019 lagging, but I'm not sure which ones those are. Hopefully Adam does.
So your 2018, 2019. We are currently still have a 2019, which is the Howe roof. 2019, that's our oldest one on the list, that Howe PV array, the roof project. I'm using the construction aid right now as well. And then the other items on the list here where you see quote, and we talked about this previously. These are items, projects, but due to the changing nature of how projects come up, which takes priority, that's why I said this is like a living document. These here are DLD and capital projects, old and new, that take precedent over what you're seeing in the Excel document. So we haven't moved on them. Does that answer your question, Tom?
Yes, I think so. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out the distinction between the memo and the full list. Okay, do you guys, Sarah or Brigitte, have any other questions on this memo or upcoming projects?
Not on this memo at this time.
Okay. Okay, I think I'm also comfortable with that. I think that's a helpful update. Yeah, so if we want to move on, I think we're good to move on then.
Oh, and in case you didn't see it, Tom, I see Brigitte typed no, not at this time in the chat box.
Oh, cool. Thank you. All right. So that brings us to agenda item 3, which is goals and objectives for our committee. So you guys might have, we already did this in finance committee, and I know it was done in personnel as well. But the executive committee suggested that each committee review its committee description in the bylaws and come up with a list of the committee's kind of regular responsibilities and when those things happen throughout the year. So that's what this agenda item is. And I shared a Google Doc that we can all work off in an email earlier today. It's called Facilities Management Committee Description.
Did you send that, did you share that with myself as well?
You know what, I forwarded it to you, so I hope it shared as a Google Doc, but it's just a hyperlink within the email that those attachments were on. Here, I can
Oh,
I'll just
I got it.
you
Oh, it says
got it.
I'm denied access.
Yeah, Tom, you're gonna have to unlock the padlock for us, because
Right.
I get the angry padlock screen that I'm not
Yeah.
allowed.
I just requested access.
Okay, I'll do that
Send me a
right now.
request.
What I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna show this for transparency. I'll show this screen once I can get access.
All right, Rebecca, I just shared it with you. I'm gonna share it with Adam. Were Sarah and Bridgie, were you able to get into it?
I thought I had a problem on my end, but I figured it out. I thought I wasn't able to switch my email. I did, but it's still saying I need access through my APL email.
And Tom, I am going to request though that you use your Albany Public Library email account, and that's for security purposes. Because right now I'm seeing that it's coming from your Gmail account. And because this has to do with APL and the board, it really, for security, it needs to be with your Albany Public Library email account.
Okay, yeah, sorry, my browser have been logged in as my personal account. I'll share that in 1 sec, guys. I don't know, I'm having trouble sharing it. Rebecca, do you think if I sent you the text in an email, you could share it as a Google Doc with?
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll add it to the board portal. And I'll put it under the facilities, because we have a BOT portal. And there should be a facilities committee. There it is.
But if we put it on the portal, are we able to edit it?
Yes,
Oh, okay, good.
I'll make sure of it. If you can't, I'll make sure that you can. So I wonder if I can get back into the original document. All right, I got it. Here we go. I'm just gonna copy and paste it into a new sheet. All right, and I will present this screen. Share with McCarthy. Share. Oh, everybody should be getting that in just a second, but in the meantime, oh,
Now it's just you.
I'm sorry. How's that?
Good. For me.
Turn a light on in here.
I see a document.
Okay. You don't, or you do?
I can see a document.
Okay.
You do.
And you should receive the email with full access to make changes.
Got it.
Great.
All right. I got it as well. Thank you, Rebecca.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the sharing is a little different from the Albany Public Library account than like a normal Gmail account.
Oh,
I'll get it one of these days.
that's okay.
Okay, so Sarah and Brigitte and all of you, I took a look at the committee description before the meeting. It's pretty short and simple, and I didn't have a lot of objections to it. But maybe I'll just read it out loud to start and then see if we have any thoughts on it. So the Facilities Management Committee shall monitor all library capital construction, renovation, and repair projects and shall provide regular reports and recommendations to the board on such projects until completed. The committee is also charged with reviewing and making recommendations to the board regarding a facilities master plan and facility management issues at each branch library, and then etc., which is just formal stuff. So I don't know, given our discussion earlier, I think that description is still accurate given what the committee expects to do. How do you guys feel about that?
And ongoing projects. And yeah, I had also taken a look prior to the meeting, and I actually just pulled those first two sentences out and put them in bullets under. So I remembered I had three. The bylaws are telling us to monitor the projects, provide regular reports and recommendations to the board on such projects until completed, and then the facilities master plan, which you have there. So it was monitor, provide reports, and then master plan.
So one thing we do, am I on mute? I never know when I'm on.
No, you're
No,
good.
you're good.
Okay, thank you for once.
First time.
I know. We do have to keep in mind that the capital budget does touch on IT as well. So do we put that somewhere in there, even if it's capital construction, renovation, repair projects, and IT upgrades or something along those lines? I mean, that's servers, big stuff, not little stuff. Even though I was surprised by how our IT budget's only like 6% of our budget, which kind of blew my mind.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea to add, especially since, in COVID times. So I'll turn on track changes while we edit it. All right, so monitor all capital construction renovation. Do you want to, so like maybe here we say construction, renovation, repair, and IT.
Major IT upgrades or IT infrastructure upgrades.
Melanie says yes.
Okay. Were you on mute, Melanie?
I was on mute, yes.
Backwards day. I mean, I think that's a good way to define it, because that's really where IT and facilities meets. Wiring.
And generally everything else is covered under the IT budget, but when
Yeah.
we have to replace servers and
Yeah, that's got to be a dual department kind of project. And facilities is the second department.
Melanie, I could be wrong. Now that I'm watching Tom do this, it looks really, really familiar. In the policy committee, did we either update the bylaws or did we update, maybe it was a policy to include IT and facilities, or I thought we made some change, maybe.
I swore that we made a change to the bylaws in the description of the committee to include IT.
Maybe we have an old copy, because I have the same thing Tom does. But I'm wondering if we have a newer set of bylaws.
But
Because I feel like I remember doing it.
Yeah,
Thanks
so do
for-
I.
Thanks for saying that, because I did notice in the bylaws that I pulled this from, it still has the old fiscal year. I just happened to glance at that section.
Oh.
So bylaws upgrade.
So maybe the one on the website is not.
so you
Does not
grab the one
reflect.
from the website because that's the one I was just going to look at to.
Yeah,
I-
because I feel like we do these updates and then I don't think we ever get like updated copies after that,
I don't have
possibly.
I don't have any updated bylaws.
So Becky, I'll probably talk to Stephanie tomorrow
Okay.
and have the two of you work on making sure all the bylaws are updated. My worry is we're getting this confused with the capital fund policy.
Yeah, I was just going to say,
That's where I'm worried. I think but we redid the bylaws and I could have sworn we included it. But
Yeah.
I want to look at
Somewhere. I know we added IT somewhere.
Yeah, just to be clear, I got this from the leadership page under the Board of Trustees section. There's
Yeah.
a hyperlink to the bylaws. That's where I pulled this from.
and I'm looking at it and it says amended in 2015. So,
No, we amended it like 2 years ago or a year ago.
so yeah.
Who
so
knows?
we have,
Time is subjective right now.
Yeah.
But within the last pre-plague, we redid these bylaws.
You mean in the before times?
And the before times, we redid this. Ugh.
yeah, this is getting very, very interesting describing all of this.
Hmm.
Oh, I just found a fiscal year change. Oh no, let me see. I have a bylaws dated December 10th, 19. No, that's something different. Dang it.
Yeah, I'm thinking we might actually have to flip through agendas or minutes
Yeah, I don't have anything.
and find the last couple updates that we would have voted on.
I'm gonna try using the search function on Board Docs.
It's not going to be there because I haven't put it up. If I don't have it, it's not there.
Yeah, we didn't change anything in the capital project, I mean the capital policy or fund balance policy. Because everything we do with IT is considered a capital asset, so we didn't need to change the policy. So we must have changed the bylaws, and somehow those bylaws didn't make it up. But I mean, we went through like a full revision of the bylaws. Because I remember reading them in the binder.
We'll find it.
Oh yeah. All right. So I found in Board Docs this from our June 11th, 2019 meeting. There was an agenda item called bylaws update, and there's a memo written on our council's letterhead that lists a bunch of changes, and
What was
one
the
of
date of
them,
that meeting?
June 11th, 2019. And one of the changes says, the committee felt that this was recently adding information technology to the list of projects that the committee monitors is a duty that the facilities management committee, and that it should be specifically mentioned. And then the other attachment has the actual text, I believe.
I'm gonna send this to Stephanie for us to finalize, make sure that we get it completed and sent out to everybody. Because I'm still seeing track changes. And I'm gonna put this in the board docs in the library, and it'll be under general. So if you haven't familiarized yourself yet with the library, I have been, as we go, I'm trying to build our library and including, I'm including different documents and even organizing them by facility at times if necessary, but there's also a general account that I can add these to. All right.
So Rebecca, I just emailed you that the resolution that the Board of Trustees passed on June 11th, 2019 about the bylaws changes, just so you have it accessible.
And then I feel like we would have done one more change after that, because if that was June 2019, I think we did our fiscal year change after that possibly. That seems too early. So there might be 2 bylaw changes.
Yeah, I think there was one specific to the fiscal year. I believe we did a review. And I think the review was in mind of what started the review of the bylaws was actually talking about the fiscal year. But I think, and again, who knows? I feel like we couldn't make that change because we had something we were waiting.
It was too early. I think we were waiting on it to be, just get closer so that our bylaws weren't in conflict with what we were actually doing. Yeah. So when we got to that point, we just did the standalone bylaw revision for the year.
All right.
Oh, there we go.
So yeah, back to our doc that's shared on our shared screen here. I just took out the old description and put the facilities committee description that was in that 2019 change. And it now includes information technology. So this is the current description as far as we know.
So in terms of another bullet point or committee charge, the part in the bylaws that say provide regular reports and recommendations to the board on such projects until completed. And I wasn't sure if I should have brought it up on the last, the current projects we were talking about, but it kind of fits everywhere. I was wondering if we could sort of reformat the projects. I have a format in mind. I don't think there's a particular name to what it's called, but I can send you a picture. It's basically a project timeline. So you have the list of projects, and then if it's, a January through March project, then below it is a, March through June project. It's just for people, you can more visually see the flow of work and projects in a year. It kind of like how we have our strategic plan, colorful with the pie charts, and it's just kind of easier to read. I was wondering if we could do something like that for capital projects so we can more visually see the flow.
We can work on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, that when we did our check-in in November, I was also looking for something kind of like that. And I know it's important to Adam that the document be presented in a way that conveys flexibility with the timing of them as things change and as as priorities shift within the organization. But I do think part of the reason we're doing this review is to make it easier for new trustees, new committee members to understand the work of the committee. And so I do think it'd be helpful to have it presented in a different way because it's a lot of info.
So Stephanie was a big part of the strategic plan presentation. So is Melanie. So what we'll do is we'll meet with Stephanie and Melanie and see what we can come up with that they'll probably provide. I am 100% sure Stephanie will be able to give us a way to present this information that's digestible to new board members.
Okay. Yeah, I think that would be great.
Yeah. I mean, for Adam and I, and probably even and Melanie, the way Adam has everything laid out makes perfect sense to us, but that's because we're in the weeds. I think what we need to do is we need to look at the great document that was created and go, okay, let's bump up a couple, I'm using business speak, I'm sorry, but let's bump up a couple elevations and say, okay, now this just looks crazy. We need to figure out how to make it from the level that you all are looking at it. How do we present that information? And knowing that the strategic plan works, and that gives us kind of a framework of how we can do it for the facilities plan.
Yeah, and I'm certainly not looking for, any project dates pinpointed, especially not for a 5-year plan, but I think for 1-year plans, if we can at least pinpoint what projects we're going after, that would help us on the finance side for the capital budget. And then even if it's, an 8-month window for everything, so we're not sure when things go, or maybe 2 projects, okay, we'll know we'll do these in 3 months, it just gives us something. So I don't need the pinpointed time. Yeah.
And I think you all have an understanding of this, but Brigitte hasn't been with us long enough to kind of pick up the fact that we could say a project's going to be done next week. And I said this to Adam earlier, anytime I've had a finish date for a project the project was either done a month before that date or 2 years after that date, because that's just the way construction works. So I appreciate that you view it that way, because we were discussing that and we were a little nervous, like we can't give deadlines because we just don't, paving is a perfect example. You've got weather, you've got how busy the crew you've hired is going to be. Because of weather, you've got plants. So in other words, if the blacktop plant isn't, and Adam, step in if I'm presenting this incorrectly, the blacktop plant, if it's raining, if the weather's cold, if it's too hot, they stop producing blacktop. So we could have a blacktop project that we think we're going to do August 5th, and it doesn't get done until September, because either we needed to wait for it to warm up, and with the weather now, who the hell knows? We either needed it to warm up or cool down in order for the plant to spit out some blacktop to do the project. So there are just, Melanie's got some of the same issues with some of her infrastructure stuff like wiring, but there's less variables. There are so many variables to construction projects. That's why the DLD grants give you a window of 2 years with 3 years, an additional year after that. Because you just don't know.
Brigitte did post in the chat. She works for housing.
Oh yeah,
Authority,
I forgot.
so
She works for housing, so she gets it. Totally forgot where you work.
I would point out the COVID-19 has ruined everything as far as planning for everybody. I think that's a pretty good statement. The planning projects, I just wanted to get a garage door done. It's not even remotely part of this. This is maintenance budget stuff. And I'm looking at 2 weeks because they have 3 people that are COVID positive and their schedulers out. And that's just looking at a garage door. And they're eliminating positions. This has just been, from a trade standpoint, it's really crazy right now. Yeah. But I have no problem putting things in timelines. We're just living in a crazy time to try and guarantee some sort of small window project stuff. I'm looking forward to going back to normal, hopefully.
Yeah, and I see what Stephanie has to say about this, but it also might just be helpful, to kind of do a rough priority order, whether it's maybe that's time order, or it could just be priority of how important it is to the organization. Kind of do, tiers of that. So, whatever's an effective way to do it. Yeah, would love your thoughts on that in the future. And maybe we can plan to put that on the April committee agenda this year.
Yeah, and I will add that at the finance committee, we're going to need to discuss how we handle the capital budget, because we need to do a better job of it. And I also think this is where we can introduce the idea of encumbrances into our overall budgeting. Because, we have money set aside. We usually have the invoices done and processed before the work's done. And I think that'll give us a more accurate view. So, if again, to go back to the blacktop example, if we have the invoice signed off on, then that becomes an encumbrance, and that shows on our budget as if it was spent, as opposed to how we do it now, which is just the money that we cut the checks for. I would love to move to that model for the overall budget, but it's a lot of work. I'd like to see
that's accrual accounting versus cash base. Yeah.
Yep. So maybe we do that with the capital budget. I think that'll help us, because remember, we went through that period of, it didn't seem like we were spending any money, and then all of a sudden, 2 months later, all the money was spent. If we had actually showed it as an accrual, an encumbrance on the budget, you would have seen that, yes, it says that we have $15,000 left over, but we've got $12,000 of that encumbered into a future project that'll be on the books once it's done.
Yeah, and I figure the finance committee will also have to go back. There's been a lot of talk from other trustees regarding some of the other financial reports and especially the capital report and just how that's reported out. We have that 3 million pot of money. We need to set aside the projects for the year. This is DLD, this is our capital fund, and how we're going to report that out. So I think we definitely have some work in the finance committee.
Yeah, I think we're in the right direction. I think we're much, much better than we were. When you came on as a trustee, I think right now it's working out the details.
Yeah.
I think we've got the big picture done. Now it's like, how does this work? And I've definitely noticed it with the last few go arounds with the capital budget that there's some stuff that we needed to fine tune that we haven't fine tuned yet.
We're getting there.
Yeah, we are.
So Brigitte has a question in the chat, which is the following. I noticed that the same funds are allocated across the board for all 5 years in the facilities plan. Do you use the same funds each year for that project?
No. So we have to change that and make them reflect. We got to figure out how to present it in a way so that it reflects the budget that was agreed upon by the facilities committee. So the facilities committee signs off on projects. That's what we're going to spend for that year. What's in the report is estimates based on if we did the projects that we're thinking of doing that year. That's the full amount, but that does not necessarily indicate what we're going to bring before the committee that year, because we may have something in a later year that all of a sudden goes, HVAC system goes at Bach 3 years earlier than we expected it to be. And we have to move that over, and we may be asking for more money. Or we may assess the buildings and say, okay, we thought we were going to need to replace the windows at Pine Hills, in 2024, but they're actually looking good. We can hold off another 3 years before we replace them. So remember, those numbers are more estimates. They're not budgets. They're estimates of what we may need that year to fulfill the projects that we think that we need to have done. But every year, basically, as every year comes and we're presenting the budget, that's what we bring to the committee is, okay, we guessed we needed to do X, Y, and Z. We only need to do X and Y, and let's hold off on Z. Not because we don't have the money, but if you can make something last longer, like if you can live another year or two with a window, you always do that because you don't want to spend the money on this until you have to. Because you have to also remember with the fund balance, that makes us money. I'm always concerned with, I don't want to spend our fund balance down to nothing, because then we'll also see that line where we make money off of investments disappear. So the more money we save, the more money we make on interest, the more income we have.
I have a follow-up question, but I don't want to jump. Are we still on the description?
Is your question about the description?
No, I had a follow-up to what we were just talking about.
Yeah,
The 5 year.
Let's follow up with that.
Okay. So I was confused because I think I'm hearing you say the opposite of what I thought, Scott. The projects, I thought they were cost averaged over the 5 years. So when I saw that 790,000 total 5 years, but I actually looked at the numbers, it seemed to be 790,000 a year over 5 years. So $4 million total. Is it the total of the projects are in one column and it's just in every year, or are they all broken down and it's 20% of each project each year?
You look at it again. Tom sent it earlier before the meeting.
And I was just about to ask the same question. I couldn't tell if these are like amortized or
Yeah,
if they're
that's
just really general.
that's what I thought.
Am I still muted?
No, you're
No,
not.
you're
Yeah.
on, Adam.
Okay. So that number you see on the front page is just the total of the existing projects for 2020 and 2021. That's all the math going down that first column.
When you say the front page, what do you mean?
The Word document would be the information, just the general presentation page of the Word document, and then you have the Excel document with the breakout.
Mm-hmm.
So Sarah, are you talking about the number at the bottom of the Word document or the Excel?
So I'm in the Excel right now.
Yep. Okay. That is just the math then of the first column going all the way down.
Right. I'm just not understanding if the columns are project totals or if the project has been divided over 5 years. So if we go to the top of the spreadsheet, the very first item is security cameras and recording at Arbor Hill. 2020, 2021 has 15,000 budgeted. It has 15,000 budgeted for all 5 years. So I just wasn't sure if 15,000 was the project total or if it was actually a $75,000 project divided by the 5 years.
No, I understand what you're saying. That was just, that is billed out. That's the estimate. And it's a one-time cost of 15,000, not knowing what year we're going to dive into.
Got it.
That's why those estimates and quotes, those are just filler from previous estimates that I have adopted. And I filled it out because I'm not sure when we're going to get to it in which year. And then I just did the math going down as, again, as a rough start to trying to have a living document with what I know is a number that is close versus not having anything which is filled in by quotes. Because we have to have quote for certain ideas. Does that make sense?
So probably what we'll need to do moving forward, Adam,
Yeah.
is let's sit down and do an estimate of when we think these projects need to get started, because we're significantly overstating our need if we put them in every year.
Sounds good.
So then that kind of gives us an idea. And then when we report this time next year, when we report to the board, or in December, whenever we report, we change this document.
Okay, so we can leave the, we'll leave the general ideas on the table, eliminate the other year quotes, and just keep the active numbers we're working on.
Yeah. So,
I would even be okay with just taking out the year columns and having one master list. So just seeing those numbers one time, and then working off of the 5-year plan. If we're just presented with the next year's plan, these are the projects selected off this list for the next year. I don't need you guys to guess for the next 5 out. As long as there's a master list and then just take it, the next year at a time, that would be fine with me.
but I would like in that master list for us at least to guess what year we might be doing them, because that's beneficial to Adam and I, like, to pick, okay, what are we going to bring to this year's capital projects?
No, understood. Just didn't want you guys to think, I was asking for everything.
No, makes sense what you're asking for. And, also keep in mind, some of these things will be also, there are things in the facilities plan that we may actually use operation money on. Because Adam's budget fluctuates so much, depending on how much snow we get, things like that. Sometimes in the budget mod, we're going to go to the finance committee and say, we need to move $20,000 out of IT. Not saying that's going to happen, Melanie. Or we have $20,000 in that we didn't spend on staffing. We want to move that to facilities. And it's usually with a project like this in mind, just to spend it. There's two schools of thought on that. It's, instead of doing that, just stick to the capital budget and just live with the overages for that year. That would be a change. That would be a change in past practice. That would be a change comparing us to past practice. So right now we've always kind of operated that way. Me, I'm very, I like things clear. I prefer to just live with the surplus and then make sure say, hey, move this into capital, but that's not how we've been doing things.
No, I understand. I think if we pulled from the capital and lived with the overage, then going forward, it would be easier for us to go back 5 years and see what we did. We would have that paper trail more easily findable. I think that makes sense. I understand it's, a little more work, maybe the finance committee has to meet an extra time to do a mod or move money or something. But no, I think it makes sense, whatever you guys want to do.
And the only time that would change, and I'm saying this for Adam's benefit as well, is if it's an emergency repair. So say that one of our trucks died and we needed to buy a truck right away, and we could do that with a budget mod, we might do that, or, fix a door or replace a door. But if it's part of this plan, instead of pulling it from the plan, we can say, all right, let's just end up with the surplus and then spend that capital.
That makes sense.
We always underspent so much, and there was always a panic to making sure we spent. That's why we kind of fell into that practice. It would be better if capital projects are paid for with capital money and planned ahead of time.
Okay. Okay, so Scott and Adam will basically, we can consolidate like the one column of costs and then column of a guess at when we might actually undertake the project.
Yep.
And then obviously that's just for our benefit as trustees, like as an internal document for you guys, Adam, do whatever makes sense to you. But yeah, for us lay people, that would be super helpful.
Yeah, you guys just unfortunately had to see my scattered mind go nuts on this Excel document, and then I had to dump it on you and figure you could calculate it out, because it was way worse than this. I've broken this thing down like 4 times, and it was way worse. So I'm gonna eliminate 4 years, keep the 1 year with the quotes and estimates that we have, and then I don't know, I'll add some colors, maybe some sound effects too for active jobs. I'm just kidding. You know.
Maybe they can whoosh in from the side.
Yeah, like yay,
Like a little-
something's done. Yeah.
What is can you share the Excel document with me though? Because
You already have it.
I already
Yeah,
have it. Is it the cost?
Yes,
Breakdown.
Okay.
it's the one you put in board docs. For some reason, when you put it in board docs, it converted to a PDF.
I
But-
have to. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, but that's what we mean by Excel.
Okay.
All right, I'll clean this up and give you guys a new version, okay?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right. So I guess that brings us back to the committee description. Sarah, did we add, you identified 3 bullets earlier. Do we have those reflected now? I think we have 2 of them, and I don't know if we caught the 3rd one.
The other one was providing the board with regular reports. And that's what I was kind of thinking could, look like the strategic plan updates with all the colors and maybe, just what I was trying to say before with the projects and kind of all timelined out. Just something that the trustees who especially aren't on the facilities committee, or those of us, on the committee, but we're not in the weeds of it, that we can just look at a piece of paper visually and we understand it quickly. If those could just be in the packets, if it's semi-annual, quarterly, just to get like those status updates, I think that'd be helpful, on a 1-page document.
I do too. So I'm going to add that as a bullet. Scott, besides like reviewing the minutes at board meetings, does the facilities committee do reports ever? For some reason, it feels like I remember, like when you guys were doing walkthroughs before the pandemic, I remember like Alyssa talking about the walkthroughs that you guys would do and stuff.
Yeah, and I mean I think that was because those were treated as meetings.
Okay.
So it's always fun to watch boards change and mold and move and be different. this board has a history of being less, not just reading the minutes, but really kind of giving highlights.
Mhm.
At some point we moved away from that to just a general reading of the minutes. I think the board needs to make a decision on how they're going to handle it, whether that's by each committee has a different flavor, or all the board comes together and go, okay, when we do our reports, we're not just going to read the minutes, but we're going to touch on all the important pieces of the minutes. Like what I would like to see is like, okay, we discussed and voted on X. We discussed, and this is how the conversation went. We discussed and covered Z, and this is what we voted on. I think that's a little bit more informative to the board than just motions. But that's my opinion. That's how you all present the information is not within my control.
I'd agree with that, though. I'm not a fan of listening to minutes being read.
Yeah, I agree too. And I think that feels like what we do. That feels like what we did pre-COVID. And now maybe that we're sitting at our own computers with our minutes right on our screen, maybe we're being a little more rote. But okay, thank you. So I don't know, does this feel like a comprehensive listing of our duties? And I'm sorry I keep asking questions. I'm also new to this committee, so this document will help me as much as it will help anyone else.
Yeah, I think all three of us are new on the facilities committee.
Questions are good.
None of you seem like new committee members. So that's good.
As we get later into the dinner hour, though, I'm going to start having to requesting food if we're going to go long. Just putting that out there, guys. Somebody's going to be paying for burgers, something, because I'm getting hungry.
I'll Grubhub some Taco Bell for us, Adam.
Hey, nacho fries are back.
I know they are. I'm on the fence about nacho fries.
Well, I mean, I think it's pretty good. So if there's not, if we all feel that way, I think I'm pretty comfortable with taking this and what are we doing with it?
So I recommend obviously sending it to the executive committee for them to review. But Sarah and I, actually both Sarahs and I, we have been, they have asked that I add it to your committee, to the library under your committee. I make your own little thing. And also I can add a little, maybe something even more concise as your committee charge. That's what Sarah Dallas has asked. So now when personnel has a meeting, right under call to order will be your new charge. And I will basically have that ongoing for every single committee. There's not really a way, there's not like a committee homepage per se. So, because that's what Sarah Shearer and I were kind of like, I was trying to figure out if it was possible or how we could do it. There's not, it just doesn't happen. So that's why I can have it for like under each date in your committees, each meeting, but and in the library. But otherwise, there honestly is not a whole lot of clear direction from the executive committee for what they were looking for. Like, I don't know. I just think that I recommend sending it to them and seeing where they want to go with that.
Yeah, I think they want to use it for like onboarding of new trustees and stuff.
Right.
So
it's in case everybody's all brand new. What are we doing? Basically. Yeah, I totally understand it.
Okay.
There's been a lot of questions with it though, so I don't know what they want to see from this point.
No, I think this is what they want to see. And I mean, Sarah, this is, it feels like we did the same thing we did in the finance committee last week, right?
Yeah. I was just wondering if we wanted to either put months or, times on some of the other bullets. Like the last one, provide reports and recommendations. Do you have any preference on how often we would do that? Like, twice a year, quarterly?
I would say twice a year.
Okay. Review and recommend a facilities master plan. So is that I'm thinking the 5-year plan, like what we're looking at. And then I'm kind of thinking of approving plans on a 1-year basis, because once the facilities committee approves the plans, the capital plans for the following year, then finance knows how much money to pull from the capital fund. So then I'm just thinking in terms of timeline, facilities committee would be looking at that annual plan prior to budget. Oh, so would that be, well, no, because it's not the operational budget, so we wouldn't have to do it now like the finance committee is doing the operational budget. It could be like what you guys were saying in May or something closer to the end of the fiscal year because it's for the following year and we're just pulling from our capital funds, right? So if we're trying to come up with a 2021, 2022 facilities plan running July 1st through June 30th, we could really come up with that plan in May or June, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Basically,
Sorry, I just talked that out.
unlike a strategic plan, these types of plans get reviewed annually or every 6 months, and they change every year.
Mhm.
We'll never write a new facilities plan. We have a 5-year plan, so the plan but when the year changes, it goes to we add 5 years and take a year away.
Yeah, you
Right.
add a
Or
year.
add a year and take a year away. So that's sometimes I have the same problem. We get confused between strategic plans and IT plans and facilities plans.
So has it been the practice of this committee to actually look at the plan every year? Or did we just do that because Adam was new?
No, the plan, I mean, Adam, the plan's not that old. I mean, the plan's only a couple years old.
So we never had a master plan.
Never. We never.
I created the master plan at the end of 2019.
Yep.
Was the first thing I did.
didn't realize that.
And it turned into a giant. But I took a big piece of clay, and you're starting to see it mold into something.
Yeah. This is
Right
still
before
new
Dan
for us.
Altheiser left, he was in the process of starting one, and he provided the mess that was given to Adam.
But
I
it was
wrote down
Because I
about
felt like
70%.
when I came on, that was when the trustees were starting all of the walkthroughs.
Yep. So
Yeah.
Dan had a very nebulous,
Robust, detailed,
yes,
driven
which is
document.
kind of my fault because I gave him the template to use. And then Adam drilled it down and made it a little bit more palpable to non. So the facilities ask plan that's in front of you was even more facilities ask under Dan, which is understandable. So, but that's this plan is new. I mean, we've never, with Dan leaving, we haven't lived with it for a year to do a review for the year.
Okay, so in that case, I'm gonna make that bullet say review and recommend a plan annually.
Yeah,
And
review and recommend changes to plan annually.
okay, and then would it be okay with you guys if I put the timing for that as April, since we are gonna meet in April anyway?
Yep.
Sure.
All right.
Yeah, because we'll be, that'll be good because we'll be close to needing to have all the projects done. Or do we meet in July? Not anyone's favorite time to meet, but maybe we can meet in person. We can meet at a park outside where it's safe. Is that our third meeting? Remember, right now we have 2 meetings scheduled. If we did it in July, all the past projects should be done by then, or the amount of money should already be encumbered. I'm a little nervous because we do a whole show of things for the projects. So that meeting's not short. That meeting's relatively long. I'm just nervous that if we're going to try to pack everything into one meeting, we're going to end up meeting again. So maybe we meet in April to go over capital and DLD projects. We meet in July or maybe June to cover to cover updating the facilities plan based on the work that was done in that prior fiscal year. And then meet again in December for a halfway point kind of report. This is where we're at. Here are some changes we may need to make.
I like that too, because I think I would prefer not to go like 6 months without meeting. So yeah, I think that gives us a nice continuity.
So kind of December update. What month did we say? March, April, May.
We said April for the DLD.
Capital.
April for proposed projects.
Yeah.
Okay. And then we could do June. Adam, would you rather wait? Would you feel comfortable doing it at the end of the fiscal year, or would you rather wait till the fiscal year ends and then report out?
I think we should do it at the end, going into the new fiscal year, do it at the end last week of June. Because I know
Okay.
I'm not going to be available. I'm never available from a personal standpoint in the Independence Day week, guys. So
Yeah, that's same.
I'm selfishly going to say end of June as we go into the new fiscal, because I take time off with family out of state.
Yeah, and I go back to the farm.
Me too.
So, farm boys, 4th of July, you can't.
Yeah, I got to go gig frogs or something.
We blow stuff up. That's the holiday.
Blow stuff.
As long as it's not your hand.
Rebecca,
Well, I don't do it.
Yeah.
Lindsay does it. I am not the fireworks person. I am the safety person.
Oh,
My wife is the blow things up person. Okay, so December an update, April proposed projects, June closeout of projects. And that's good. And that gives us a fourth possible meeting. And that means that we're kind of meeting 4 times a year, which is the norm. And I can't see the chat for anything. Brigitte, is this okay with you?
She previously said makes sense, and that was at 4:26. It's now 4:30. Now she says sounds good.
Okay, good.
the DLDs and capitals, those have to be completely closed out for the next year by, I think, that has to be submitted by December, right? Like all the way through the process, we got to get those in by next December. Okay.
And remember, the amount that's not covered by the state, that comes out of the capital fund.
Yeah.
So we'll also see fluctuation because of that.
Yeah.
Okay. And then for reporting, for this committee to report to the board about ongoing projects, I think semi-annually is enough. And when would you like to do those? Like, I would say probably either January and July or on the other quarters, April and
So you're saying proposing newer projects?
No, the last bullet, just like to
Ongoing.
give the board an update about ongoing projects, just so they can be casually kept in the loop.
Yeah, January board meeting.
Okay.
So we would meet in December And then that would give us the January board meeting to talk about it there.
Right.
Right. Okay.
Actually, that's good too, July, because potentially new trustees and whatnot.
Oh, that's a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah, and we'll have a June
And a
meeting.
new, also a new facilities committee, usually, like everything gets all changed up. So
Mhm.
July is good. So actually, yeah, July, should it be June then? Because almost like your outgoing people are saying where you are, so that way in July, everything changes.
Oh, I was thinking the January and July is when we would report out to board meetings. So does that mean the committee would have to meet December, June?
December, yeah, the month
December
before.
10th. Yep.
Right.
So,
Which,
So
which
you'd be, at that time, you'd be doing the monitor ongoing projects and at the same meeting and the review recommended changes update. So those two meetings that'll be together
Yeah.
and report the following.
so in the July meeting, the chair of the facilities committee will be reporting out on the changes to the 5-year plan. And then do we switch the committees in July or August? We do it in July.
July is our annual meeting. So
So
that's
that's when we-
when,
And then they get
yeah,
announced
the new
in August.
trustees come on, we elect our officers, and then the new executive committee meets to appoint the new committees. So we usually get our committee assignments in August, the new
August.
ones.
So
Right.
y'all still be on the committee when you're reporting it out.
Mhm.
But that's a good point. Thank you, Becky.
Sometimes I have a little bit of, good input.
Okay. I guess the other thing I was gonna suggest is that maybe we could add this last bullet, then provide updates on ongoing projects. Maybe we could add that to that I don't know what to call it, that list of our monthly full board meetings and all the things we do in each month regularly.
Oh,
Yeah.
standing,
Yes, we had that. And this year it's a little goofy.
yeah.
One, because of the pandemic.
And also it's our first year with the new fiscal year.
The second was it's a new year with the fiscal year and we hadn't quite figured out how things were going to fall.
Right.
So yeah, that was something that we used to do and we're going to do again. It's just more of this year was a total mystery.
Right.
What's up, Phil?
But that is a good idea of, recreating and reworking the standing meeting agenda.
Yeah, I like that list. I think that's really helpful for people when they come on.
Okay. That's good to know.
And then I just made a note at the bottom here that we should have the facilities plan in the board docs library so that we can access it.
We can do that right this second.
And then at some point when we have a digestible list of projects, we can add that to the library too.
We don't want to add the existing document because you guys have,
Ooh, stink bug.
punched some holes in it and threw marker at it.
Get rid of the stink bug.
Don't update that sucker until I get it out to you.
That's our
Rebecca.
job, Adam.
Huh?
Poke holes. Our job is to poke holes.
Oh, it's all good. Poke them all
No,
you
I-
want. I just said it. We're going to update that or upload it. We might as well wait till at least get it cleaned up a little bit better on what Sarah requested, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm not gonna.
Yeah, not yet, Rebecca. I'll send you an email.
Jump on the gun.
Yeah. And the library is private, right? So only we can see that.
No, it can be private. It's up to you.
Oh.
Like for instance, personnel committee, has like the executive director job specs and stuff like that, that's all private. That is not accessible to the public.
Yeah.
Same, different statement of compensation, stuff like that. But there are like the policy grid that could be public, because that doesn't matter. It just shows the public when we are planning on reviewing these policies. So it's up to you if you want it public or private.
Okay. Yeah. Would you ask me that question when the time comes to post it?
Yeah. Right now, right now, the only thing that is public is the committee descriptions. Everything else right now that has ever been put in the library is private. And that will only be accessible once you're logged in.
Okay.
So
Right.
there's only a handful of us that have logins for board docs anyway. So that's part of the whole trustee, once you're logged in, you get access to all of that.
Mhm. Okay, cool. Is there anything else from you, Sarah, or Brigitte?
No, I think we covered everything.
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we came up with today. And so just one more time, Rebecca. So I will send the document. I will send this document to the executive committee and just wait for instructions.
Yes. I mean,
Yeah.
we're not really, it's your document. I would
Yeah.
just show them basically that you did the work, but it is your document. So, with your permission, I can add it to the library under facilities committee. And it would be public, so the public can see what the committee does. And like I said, I can also add it to all of the meetings going forward under like call to order. I can add the document there as well.
Sure, that sounds great.
Just a reminder. Basically, it would just serve as a reminder in the meetings. But yeah, I would just email it to the executive committee just to show them the work is done.
Mhm. All right, I will do that. And so with that, I think we're done with new business.
Do you want to add like a footer on here saying that the facility, like when you finish this?
Yeah.
Only
I
because
think
it's not a draft, and it might be something you want to add just to show that we can change. Obviously it's a workable document, so it can be adjusted and whatever as you go. It's up to you.
That's a good idea. I'll do that before I send it to the committee. I'll probably just put, updated, updated and the date.
Yep.
And when I send it to the committee, I'll send it to you too, Rebecca, in a final version.
Please. All right, then if everybody is done, I just need to be official. Somebody has to motion to adjourn.
So move. Brigitte seconds in the chat.
Beautiful, beautiful. If you're not logged in, just state your vote. Perfect. All these screens. Okay. What time is it? 4:40. I will copy and paste the minutes to you. Please add or make any changes, and then I will recopy and paste back into board docs.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, guys.
This is a good meeting.
Yeah, we got a lot done and I feel good.
Food.
Is there a way we can stop streaming before we all jump off?